Our last speaker for the day is Vice President of Digital, Vice President of Digital at Deseret Book. Please welcome Rob Johnson.
Great, thanks, Sean. And it's good to be here in my office, like we all are. It's quite the year this year, so hopefully you're all hanging in there. So today I want to talk about Solidus and subscriptions and talk through the journey that we've experienced at Deseret Book from the beginning of being and jumping onto Spree back in 2014, and talking about our journey through disruption and coming out the other side with a pretty good subscription plan and program. So hopefully you learn a few things, and yeah, let's go. So just a brief overview of Deseret Book Company. Deseret Book Company is comprised of multiple companies, multiple retailers and brands and imprints, with currently 68 stores nationwide. It's highly focused on vertical strategy, owning the entire value chain for most of its product. So from the very conception of product and manufacturing to the sales channels to the fulfillment of product, Deseret Book Company owns everything all the way through for most of its product, which is really advantageous, especially at a time currently where many retailers are struggling. There's been a tremendous amount of traffic changes, as you know, when it comes to retail, and that's really impacted retailers who specifically are kind of the middle man, where they're going to have less margin to play with. So a vertical strategy owning the entire value chain has been very beneficial, and we're fortunate to have that. The businesses that we have, the types of businesses that we have, include 3 different retail store entities: Deseret Book, Seagull Book, and Sweet Salt Clothing. We have several publishing imprints, including a nationwide imprint called Shadow Mountain. We have a record label, a movie distribution company, a print magazine, and an events business. So it's a very unique company in the sense that it has just lots of different things going for it. So here's the timeline. So in 2014, we replaced the custom legacy e-commerce app solution with Spree. And actually, myself and a colleague, Matt Red, who some of you will know and remember, we went to New York in 2017 and went to, actually 2013, I think, and went to Spree Commerce conference. I think, yep, GoDaddy were there and Bonobos were there. And it was fun and exciting then too. So we are a rail shop at Deseret Book, and we were looking for an open source platform, and decided to jump onto Spree. And one of the things that's interesting is we had multiple stores specifically for Deseret Book. We had, you could say, DeseretBookProper.com, where we sold all of the physical product, and then we had a separate website for our digital product, which were at that time just ebooks. And in 2014, when we made that change, we merged those two together. And I'll talk more about that soon. In 2015, we relaunched our iOS and Android ebook apps and added audiobooks as a functionality in 2015. And then in 2016, we went from Spree to Solidus. And in 2017, we launched our first subscription, Bookshelf Plus. So a lot of changes happening for us. A lot of back-end changes and integration changes. So we actually rewrote in 2015, completely rewrote the iOS and Android apps as well. So the situation, we had 2 e-commerce stores with a different product page for each variant, which is pretty wild to think about. So If we're very obviously heavily focused on books, and so we had hardcover, paperback, ebook, audiobook, all of those would have had completely separate product pages. And again, on top of that, our main store was for physical product only, and a separate URL was for the digital product. And so we kind of had we fragmented our audience. If you were on the main site and wanted the ebook version, we wouldn't even tell you about that it was available, and you'd have to somehow find the other website and go there. So pretty interesting. So, and there's a reason why I'm bringing all of this older stuff up, and because the big kind of get, I think, here is we're talking about disruption and what impact that can have on a company, on a business, and some of the challenges that can happen with it. So we did change our e-commerce platform in the following ways. We improved customer experience. We now have a single product page for all format options. So, all of the options I mentioned before, all variants now are on one single product page. Search, there's no more multiple product results showing for all product variants. So if you were to search for a specific product and it had 5 variants, it would actually show 5 times in the search results, which is crazy. And SEO, this is strategic. My background is in SEO, and I started doing SEO in 2002 and did it for some news media entities in Utah as well. Anyway, so my focus was definitely SEO, and all format links or all variant links point to the same product page. And there's kind of some interesting things you can do there to make sure that Google understands that when you click on a different variant, that it's the same product page, even though you can create links that go specifically to the variant and have the variant selected. And so we saw organic traffic jumping 36% soon after we made this change. And it continues to be our #1 revenue source for Deseret Book, which is great. Organic traffic is free stuff, and that's always good. So did everyone agree with this, that this was a good thing? I couldn't resist but to add this cute fellow on here. Not quite. And this is where disruption, this is why businesses get disrupted. The top line is lower for digital, right? Your MSRPs are lower for digital product. And so when you have top line goals and you're pushing for digital, you get quite a few, concerned faces here, because their goals are being impacted. You're basically undercutting the traditional business. Margin dollars are lower for digital per item. So not only is the top line low, but also your margin is lower too. So, some people are like, why are you, in fact, here we go. Why promote a cheaper format option on the product page? Now this isn't a silly concern. It's a very valid concern. If you have 2 products and you know that your customers are going to buy this specific product, why are you pushing for the less expensive product? And that's really because disruption is painful, and it often hurts short-term growth objectives. And it's exactly why businesses get disrupted. And here I'm taking, if you know Clay Christensen, he wrote The Innovator's Dilemma. And I was very fortunate, he mentored at Harvard someone who became my boss, and he taught me and mentored me in disruption. And it was a good education. And so here you have the performance and time, and over time, you see that disruptive technology initially, it will be good enough to provide be good enough. That's probably the best key phrase here. It will be good enough for low quality use. And over time, it gets better and better and better until it starts to disrupt the high quality and most demanding use over time. And a good example of this is music. In the beginning, there was the MP3 players that were pretty terrible, and you had to load them up, and it was kind of hard work. The iPod came around and started to make it easier to use. And now we're at a point, and the audio quality, if you're an audiophile, people still say it's not as good as the LPs that are out and things like that. But today you've got a really high quality, really easy to use. You've got like the entire library of all music that's available through just an app on your phone. So that's a kind of a simple example of disruptive technology and what that looks like. I think you can definitely apply any technology to this, including Solidus, and I think that is a disruptive technology. I think open source follows this very, very well. In fact, I think new markets come open and new solutions arrive, and they're usually highly expensive and whatnot. And then I think this is why I'm with Sean on being a really big proponent of open source software, because it is disruption at a really kind of a beautiful core of it. It's all about disruption and about providing something that's beneficial for many people, and continuing over time to be able to perform at the most demanding use. And yep, you can apply this to this model to any industry. When I was learning this, I was in the news industry, and of course that's heavily disrupted because it's a lot easier to search and read on your phone than it is to hold a newspaper, right? I have, just FYI, I have this deck in the bottom left. You can go there, and it should be up there. And then there's a link here to the Innovator's Dilemma for anyone who's interested in reading it. So with that said, I'm actually going to go, and there's a tweak to the Innovator's Dilemma, and I'll talk about how I learned it was wrong in a certain area. So, but the core message here is integrating digital with physical was a stepping stone for increased digital sales and digital subscription. So even though we didn't know what was coming in the future, integrating digital, we just knew that strategically it was important. And as you can see now, we've got Audible, Kindle, Kobo, a bunch of different distribution channels, all of which have different costs associated with them. And so integrating it with the physical store or the physical product sales was really important for us. So we launched Bookshelf Plus in 2017, and this is the subscription that we have. It's unlimited audiobooks and over 2,500 ebooks, which is about 3/4 of our paid ebook library. So there's a lot of books there, and it starts at $6.99 a month, and it's like Netflix. It's not like Audible. So in the sense that you can actually listen to as many audiobooks as you want when you're a subscriber. And it's interesting, as I've been looking at Audible over the years and seeing them evolve, they just recently released Audible Plus, which is kind of this subset. And again, they're just doing audiobooks, but it's a subset catalog that's unlimited available now, instead of having just one credit every time. So they've kind of shifted to this type of model too. Although the credit system that they have is very interesting, and I think has some really interesting implications for discounted a la carte purchases, which I won't get into today, but anyway, it's just really interesting to see how other people are handling subscriptions. So just give a quick shout out. This is not a paid shout out, I will add, but we use Braintree for the subscription and recurring billing features. I always enjoy hearing what other people are using, and just wanted to give a shout out to Braintree and PayPal for that. It's been good. I think we've learned a lot as we've done the integration. Taylor Scott, who actually presented earlier today, did a lot of this for Deseret Book and did a great job of it. And so as I've looked at other subscription services, they all differ in the quality and kind of how they do things. It's worth taking a look at Braintree, but there's lots of other alternatives out there. It really depends on what type of subscription plan you're after. So I just want to get straight to the data and kind of just get straight to what does this look like over the years, and then talk about the things we've learned after that. So I think it's kind of useless to put in actual dollar amounts because it's all relative. We're not an insignificant e-commerce website, so I'll just say that. So in 2015, we didn't have a subscription service. In 2016, we didn't. 2017 was the beginning of, we launched in April of 2017. And so it was not a full year in 2017. And now let me just define here what a la carte spend is. I'm comparing digital a la carte to subscription revenue. And what I mean by digital a la carte is purchase to own. Not rent. So you've got owning and renting. Blue is owning and orange is renting. So this is a 5-year view. I'll add that there is a forecast added. It's a very conservative forecast. We're going to hit it, but I just forecasted it out for the end of the year just to kind of show you what we'll get this year from this. And I have a good confidence in that number because subscriptions are very, you can project, and they're very easy to kind of see the future. The forecast is very simple on subscriptions, even through COVID, which has broken every projection and forecast in retail. However, I have not seen it impact negatively subscriptions. So this is one of the really big reasons why investors and stakeholders like subscriptions, is because they're dependable and they're forecastable. So there's a lot of interest with subscriptions just everywhere that I'm seeing right now. So 39% cannibalization, and I'm pulling that number from before subscriptions were implemented. So I'm looking at that 2015, 2016 baseline number, and then looking at 2020 and saying, okay, overall we have a 39% cannibalization, and we knew we were going to have some cannibalization, specifically in digital product a la carte, which is absolutely expected. It isn't as low as I thought it would be, and I think there's some good reason for that. And I think it's how you frame that subscription, and how you implement a subscription plan. So let's talk about exactly what that is. We don't give our ebooks, brand new ebooks, we don't put those on the subscription. We wait 18 months, and then there's some algorithms that we've made that determine if it's wise or not to put the ebook onto the subscription plan. But all audio is on from day one. And so what we find is that there are people who subscribe, love the format, learn the platform, they enjoy the apps, and they start to spend more in that a la carte area where there can be a gap. So they're fine spending some money on the a la carte purchases. And you can see this with Audible. If you're an Audible subscriber, there are discounts that you get as a subscriber that give you product at a cheaper price. And it's a great lever to pull to effectively get more revenue from the customer. which I like to call transactional value. So it's all about bringing transactional value to the customer. And the big one here is a 97% overall growth in annual digital revenue since launch, which is no small thing, and it's been a big boon to our department. So being able to effectively double your revenue is no small thing. So that's how it looks in terms of comparing it to digital a la carte. But how has this impacted overall sales, including physical sales? So how does it compare, now that we've merged everything together, how does it compare overall? And I will say these are numbers as of August 2020. And by numbers, I mean like shapes. So subscriptions have been a net positive. And you know, there's a lot of 2020 left. We have seen an increase in sales since COVID. So we're expecting that blue to be higher than it's ever been before. But we also have the subscription spend higher than it's ever been before too. So, you know, there's been some interesting, I'm showing you currently just the deseretbook.com or the e-commerce only comparisons. I'm not showing the store comparisons. But I will just add here that the analysis that I've done shows that spend in stores for subscribers has gone up, which is really interesting. So the concept of being top of mind for a customer is huge with subscriptions. If you can provide something that has a lot of use, that brings them back again and again, they will engage more with the brand. And this has been a hard sell for the stores because they feel like we're disrupting them. And truly, you know, that could very well happen. However, what we are seeing is greater affinity for the brand and higher sales, even for the stores. Now, if we go back here, we are lower on a la carte for digital, and that's the cannibalization coming to effect. So it kind of evens things out a little bit, but with much more of a head on top. So for the stores, there isn't cannibalization. There's additive value. So really fascinating. And I haven't quite gotten here yet. It's kind of embarrassing, but in terms of specifically what categories they're purchasing more in is the next phase. We are seeing as a whole, as a business, but as we provide lifestyle products, which are like home decor and things like that, that we're seeing an increase in sales in that category, right? So some interesting things are happening. And that's kind of my next phase, is to kind of look and see specifically what categories are being impacted. But anyway, I'm sure no one would disagree with having a nice increase year over year with this, and so I'll continue. So what have we learned? There's been many things. Now I'm going to kind of, the first point here goes directly against what I interpreted, and I think what most people interpreted the innovator's dilemma to be. And let's go here. So the innovator's dilemma, back in the day, Walmart, Nordstrom, everyone was basically siloing their e-commerce to be in a completely different department than the traditional business, right? And what's interesting is deseretbook.com had the same thing. It was taken to a different business, not even part of Deseret Book. Now the same parent ownership and everything, but you know, different building even. So that was our first kind of like, well, we don't want, because like I talked about before, we have the concern. Hey, you're you know, let's look at this right cart form variant picker here. Your hardcover is $18.99, and your ebook is $8.99. Like, why would you undercut yourself like that, right? And that's the big concern. And that was the concern that Clay Christensen had, was, you know, there's this older traditional stuff that costs a lot higher, and then you're coming in with this lower cost thing. Sure, it's not in this case, it's not the paper, you don't get the smell and everything that, people who love books get, but eventually it's going to be good enough. And so the concern was, if you stick with the traditional business, they're just going to squash everything, and they're not going to let you do anything. And to be quite frank, I've been over, at this time I was over e-commerce, like specifically as director of e-commerce. And even then it was very difficult to actually get people to agree with this, because it does impact your top line sales. So yeah, that's probably as much as I can say there, but as you saw on the previous slide, there is a big reward that's there for those who follow through with that disruptive path. So yeah, let's talk about tightly coupling your subscription offering to the traditional business. What I found is, so I did work for Deseret Book at the other company when it was decoupled, and then when it became coupled again, that's when I moved over from another company to this one and did it. And I will say that when you couple any disruptive, subscription or whatever product, you actually have a tremendous amount of information and ability to promote in ways that you would never be able to promote before. And ultimately, I think the response to Clayton Christensen was I think he did a correction on this, actually. The correction was, you want to, in the retail space at least, you want to couple as tightly as you can, because the customer perception of and their experience that they have is huge. And that's why we hear all the time now the concept of omnichannel, and how everything's omnichannel and customer experience. And we're seeing, and even Solidus is going this direction, and Deseret Book is as well. You want to couple your POS transactions with your e-commerce, because we see this for Shopify, POS, and like basically every POS out there right now. They're trying to leverage a single omnichannel kind of application, if you will, or at least a customer experience that enables them, to go to a store and be like, oh, hey, it's not in stock, but let me just ship it to your house, or let me ship it to the store for you. And it's just very simple. Or especially with COVID now, hey, let me order some things and have them ready to be picked up at the store. So that world, it's best to tightly couple your subscription offering or your digital offering to the traditional business. So ways you do this specifically to a website is to do things like one-click checkout add-ons. And a really normal use case for this is insurance for specific tech or digital items like TVs and blenders and all of that stuff. You can tack on some insurance for just a few dollars. And I chatted with Nordstrom for a while, and this was one of their biggest moneymakers, because the margin is nearly 100%, because the actual usage of these programs is just so low that it's definitely a moneymaker for those people. But in terms of Deseret Book, what we did is we added the ability to subscribe with just a click as people checked out. So it's like, hey, you want to check out, get a 30-day free trial for the subscription, check this button. If you're interested, you can cancel anytime, which is really important, and I'll talk about that later. And so the card that they just entered during checkout is tokenized and is used for their subscription, and then they have the ability to manage their subscription after that. Simplify the sign-up process, right? And that's what I just talked about. The tokenized cards is a big one. Minimizing as much of that, as much as that friction as possible, which is just a general e-commerce thing to do. And then to remove the complexity of prorating fees and serviceable dates. It is very complicated to do subscriptions and to figure all of those things out programmatically. what you want to do is make sure that the customer doesn't feel any of that, any of that complexity. They're not figuring things out in their heads. A really nice simple one is that you pay for the time period, the renewal period, and it's just active until that's run out, even if you cancel immediately, which is what a lot of people have gone to. But just continuing to focus on making it simple as possible. Point number 2, original product is key. We found that some customers only subscribe for specific content. So find out what the demand is and create unique content around the job to be done. Giving your content to other distributors will weaken your subscription offering, and this is critical. So you find this in the Audible world. They've got Audible Originals, and we've dabbled with this, and we've created our own original shows as well. And we found that we have many customers and subscribers who subscribe purely just for that one show. And I think we can all think of a subscription, probably Netflix or whatever, that we subscribe to just for a specific product or for some specific content. And owning that and not weakening your offering by having other distribution channels is really important, right? So, for example, if Netflix distributed Stranger Things to Prime Video, I guarantee that their subscribers would be a lot lower, right? At least for that time period. So it's a very critical thing. And as we continue to do research, it's really what makes people want to jump onto the subscription, which is something I'll mention in a bit too. There's an interesting find here. So simplify your upgrade path as much as possible. So when asking customers in our research if they would prefer to add an entirely new subscription plan versus increasing their current subscription plan, we saw a 44% increase in interest in simply upgrading the current subscription. So they're saying, instead of like, if you're going to offer me A, B, and C, just roll it up into one. Like, and if I'm already doing A, just give me a button that will let me just add B and C real quick. And of course, this is all easier said than done, but a 44% increase in interest is not anything to balk about. It's a really big number. Now, we've seen in a small sense of this, we don't have really other subscriptions that tie in exactly right now, but we've seen an 11% increase in subscribers upgrading to annual since after the first year we launched. So I'll tell you what that number is soon, but 11% increase is attributable to people's perceptions of the value that it brings, but also it's because it's easy to upgrade. And what we have to do on the back end, and as you can see, this is not a super technical talk or anything, but we actually have to cancel the subscription that's been made this monthly and then create an annual subscription. And with that, we have to do a bunch of logic to determine how best to do that for the customer. And the customer doesn't see any of this. And that's the really big key. And that's one of my sayings, is that good tech gets out the way. And so this is an example of good tech getting out the way and increasing value for the company. So 11% increase, that's in annual subscriber share, which I'll share right now, I think. Yeah. So your annual subscribers, and it's really important to get this, get as many of these as possible, will be your most valuable customers. Now, mathematically, that doesn't quite make sense because, let's say you've got a $10 a month subscription. For monthly, that's $120 a year. And for annual, generally the rule is you knock off 2 months. So that would be $100. So you're missing $20 for the monthly people. Sorry, for the annual people. But increasing your annual subscriber share is worth the effort. Seeing growth here is a strong sign of higher retention and engagement with your product and your service. And so right now we're currently at 44% annual. We started off at about 33% at the end of 2017. And so having that increase over time has been a great sign of that we're doing some stuff pretty good. So we also see that the annual subscribers are your brand advocates. They're the people who just love your brand and your product, and we see engagement and purchasing in other channels with that group as well. Like I said, in store is a big one. And it also gives them the opportunity to go into other categorical areas, right? So, for example, we have home decor. So we might bring someone into the fold, if you will, of the brand Deseret Book because of some content that we have, some books, and they might come in for that reason. But we might be able to also be of service in other ways of art and home and decor, clothing. There's other ways we can be helpful. So that is that's one of the great things about annual, is that it's an indicator that you've got a customer who really likes what you're doing, and you can probably segment to those people and they'll respond at a higher rate than other customers that you have. So it's a great way to create relevancy, to be top of mind. It's all really about that with the customer, with subscription, is to try and generate that interest. Your old product is still very valuable. So the traditional book cycle has a first 17 weeks life cycle, where the majority of sales occur in the first 17 weeks. Subscriptions changes this significantly. Consumption of audiobooks and ebooks have a very long and thick tail, and what I mean by that is that it's not just about the first 17 weeks or just the top product, but you've got a ton of consumption happening for thousands and thousands of products, where in the retail world, you're really only stocking for, 15. So it's a very different approach, and for a traditional business, that's quite something to navigate and to help people understand. So focusing on now available messaging, related products, and merchandising space to aid discovery is very important, because you want to help people discover this content. And what didn't sell anything for potentially months or even years, suddenly now is actually getting consumed and being used by customers, and actually they like it. Here's a great one. I don't think I would ever buy The Simpsons. I hope that didn't offend anyone. But since we've been on Disney Plus, that's probably the top show I've watched, which might be embarrassing. But anyway, that's a really pretty interesting example of this very thing, is that old content is still valuable, and subscriptions help you provide old product to become relevant again. And it kind of, it's a very interesting, thing that happens with older content that you think is just gone and done, which in the traditional world is kind of how they look at it. I will add this caveat here. We've not implemented a recommendation system yet, but know that would be very valuable also. And it's kind of embarrassing. And we've wanted to do it for like years at this point, but we've been pretty stretched then. So, and here's this point of The Simpsons. What brings people to subscribe is not what keeps them there. I put this happy chappy in the background because this was kind of a revelation for me. And it, as you think about it, as we all become more familiar with subscriptions and we see our own behavior patterns, it makes just simple sense. But our subscriber consumption data shows that customers are often initially drawn to subscribe for certain desired content. But what keeps them as subscribers is content that they wouldn't have initially subscribed for. So kind of a funny point, but it's very relevant and very true from the consumption that we've seen. And again, as you consider even your own consumption, you probably find the same thing happens to you. I certainly would not. It's just odd. I would not subscribe if I knew I was going to be consuming this content, but it's what keeps me there. So just knowing that there's a difference between the two is very interesting. 7, invest in acquisition and retargeting to the platform, not the product. So in the book world, you're very much always kind of shouting the next book. And I think we've been caught a little bit in the trap of effectively putting all of our marketing material towards building a book that's going to be here today and gone in 17 weeks. So with subscriptions, it's all about ensuring that you're building a brand. Like, for example, when you hear Stranger Things, you probably hear Netflix in your head first before you think of Stranger Things, right? Netflix is the top brand that they want you to think about, even before their top products that they have. So define the amount you're willing. Okay, so let's go to acquisition. Define the amount you're willing to spend on acquisition. So general approach for the most aggressive plans that I've heard of is to put back into marketing all of the revenue earned for the first 1 to 2 years. We've never done that. We've not had to do that. And the acquisition costs, obviously you want to go as low as you can, and by doing that, you're hitting as relevant a target as possible. That's the importance of retargeting, is to create a network, however best you can, to retarget the people who have the highest affinity and possibility that you'll have to determine what that segment is. But those are the people you want to target, and those are the people you're actually willing to pay more for. But what's really weird with retargeting is you're going to pay less for the most relevant people, and you're going to pay the most for non-relevant people over time. So ensure that the positioning of your subscription brand is above the product it contains. That's kind of the Netflix and Stranger Things thing I just talked about. And each message will provide greater awareness and perceived value of the subscription instead of the ephemeral product. And so, product is very ephemeral. As much as we all loved Stranger Things, again, I'm just using that as an example, it's like kind of boring right now, right? Like you're not watching it right now, So it is ephemeral, and so it's really critical that you continue to push the actual platform itself. And the last point I have here is to empower the customer. Subscriptions are everywhere. Don't be the one to require a notarized and posted letter to cancel. That's like, some subscriptions are just terrible like that. They require way too much. The worse your cancellation experience is, the less likely your customers will be to sign up again. And I think the start-stop subscription behavior will become the norm. I've probably canceled Netflix 4 times in the time I've had it. And I cancel because I know it's easy to start up again. And as subscriptions proliferate, empowering the customer in this way becomes even more important. And of course, it's complicated, but again, making great tech that gets out of the way is the key to empowering the customer and getting them back again when they see another title that they want to connect with. So, and that is everything from me. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a great rest of the Solidus 2020 Conf.